A human walked into a three-species courtship and shattered the rules. Captain Elias Kane had never seen a world like Triumvia before. From the moment his shuttle pierced the atmosphere, he was greeted by an explosion of colors, shapes, and light that seemed alive. The forests glowed faintly, each tree humming with soft vibrations. Rivers sparkled with a strange luminescence, and the mountains in the distance shimmered as if dusted with starlight. But beauty was not what caught Kane's attention first. It was the feeling that everything on this planet operated on a rhythm he did not yet understand. He stepped off the shuttle with his boots, crunching softly on a surface that was part crystal, part soil. Triumvia's air was fresh, tinged with minerals, and filled with the hum of life forms moving just beyond sight. Kane adjusted his sleeves, scanning the area. He was supposed to negotiate a mining treaty for Earth, but already he felt as though he had stumbled into something far more delicate than commerce. A soft glow drew his eyes upward. There, floating on currents of air, were the Varelians. Slender winged beings with feathers that shifted colors with every movement. They regarded him with what could only be described as a mix of curiosity and mild irritation. Their eyes, wide and reflective, followed his every motion. Kane raised a hand in greeting. One of the Varelians tilted its head and then mirrored his gesture in slow, deliberate motions. He nodded. So far, so good. Then the ground rumbled. From behind the crystalline forest emerged the Graphic. Towering, muscular creatures with armored hides, they stomped with purpose. Kane could feel the vibration through the soles of his boots. Unlike the Varelians, the Graphic did not appear curious. Their eyes were narrow slits, calculating, wary. They approached silently, forming a protective semicircle around the clearing. Finally, Shima appeared at the edges of the ceremony site. The Luminae emerged almost like mist given shape, translucent and delicate, moving without walking. Kane sensed their presence before he saw them, fully thoughts, brushing his mind like feathers against skin. The Luminae did not speak in words, but in emotions and images. Curiosity, caution, and a flicker of surprise rippled through his mind. Kane stepped back instinctively. "Welcome, human," a voice echoed in his mind, not through his ears. The thought was calm but commanding. You arrive at a delicate moment. The tri-species courtship begins. Kane froze. He had read about Triumvia in reports, yes. But the tri-species courtship was always described as a ceremonial ritual, not an active living event. And now he was standing directly in the middle of it. A sudden hush fell over the clearing. The Varelians tilted their wings in precise angles. The Grathek's shoulders squared, and the Luminae's glow intensified. Kane realized too late that he had stepped into a circle that he had not been meant to enter. "I'm sorry," Kane said, hands raised, voice small in comparison to the silence of the three species. "I didn't mean to interrupt." Varelians exchanged quick glances. One of them let out a soft trill. The Grathok's eyes narrowed, but they did not attack. The Luminae pulsed with light, sending a ripple of uncertainty across the clearing. Kane had no idea what he had done wrong. Only that every living creature there was waiting for him to move or stay. Then, something unexpected happened. Kane's mind, always quick to adapt, started noticing patterns. The gestures of the Varelians, the stance of the Graphic, the pulsing of the Luminae, they were a code, a rhythm, a language all in themselves. Without thinking, he matched the tilt of a Varelian wing with the tilt of his own shoulder. He bent his knees slightly to mirror the Grathok's stance. And as for the Luminae, he focused on remaining calm. Letting his emotions be clear and steady, a signal he hoped they could understand. The pause in the ritual stretched. Then a soft sound emerged. Not a voice, not a word, but a harmony. A vibration that moved from the Varelians to the Graphic and flowed into the Luminae. Kane felt it through his chest. He had not intended to do anything, but he had stepped into the rhythm. And somehow, he had matched it. The crowd of aliens seemed to hesitate, then relax. A trill of approval from a Varelian. A subtle nod from a Graphic. A pulse of light from the Luminae. Kane exhaled, the tension leaving his body, though he did not dare move further. "You," Survive your first step, the Lumine thought to him. Cain blinked. The voice was not sound, but a thought, and yet he understood perfectly. Few outsiders can even sense the rhythm, much less integrate. Cain swallowed. I'm just trying not to break anything. The Lumine's pulse flickered. The Varelians made small chirps, and the Graphic shuffled slightly. Cain noticed for the first time the structure of the courtship. The Varelians moved in arcs, the Graphic in firm, grounded steps. The Lumine guiding the flow with subtle nudges of telepathic energy. Together, they created a dance, a display, a negotiation, all in one. Cain had no formal training in alien rituals, yet he could not help himself. His human instincts, honed through years of improvisation and tense situations, kicked in. He began to mirror, adapt, and respond. When a Varelian shifted its wings downward, he raised his arms slightly in echo. When a Graphic stomped in rhythm, he shifted his weight to meet it. When a wave of emotion pulsed from the Lumine, he centered himself, grounding and steadying. Letting the flow pass through him rather than resist it, the clearing seemed to shimmer. Cain's human unpredictability created a small ripple in the ritual, subtle but noticeable. The Varelians looked at him with something akin to admiration. The Graphic frowned, uncertain but intrigued, and the Lumine. They were stunned. They had never experienced an outsider integrate so quickly, so seamlessly, into something that had been held for centuries with strict rules. Then came the first mistake horror. Was it brilliance? Cain, feeling the rhythm, moved his foot a little too far forward. A Varelian wing flicked in surprise. A Graphic shifted uncomfortably. A wave of color pulsed across the Lumine's body. Cain froze, expecting anger, perhaps even expulsion. Instead, something remarkable happened. The movement sparked a subtle change. The Varelian's wings arched differently. The Graphic adjusted their stance. The Lumine's glow flowed in new patterns. Cain had, without intending, added something new to the courtship. Something alive, vibrant, and unexpected. The elders, standing at the edge of the clearing, whispered among themselves. Cain could not hear them, but he sensed the shift in tension. There was fear, yes, but also awe. A human had done what no outsider had ever done. He had not broken the ritual, he had expanded it. Cain took a deep breath. He realized he had stumbled into something far more significant than a diplomatic mission. This was history in motion, and he was the first human to step into it. The Varelians chirped. The Graphic hummed a low vibration, and the Lumine's glow brightened. Cain matched the energy, smiling despite the knot of nerves in his stomach. He did not yet understand the rules fully, but he knew one thing: humans could adapt. Humans could learn. And sometimes, humans could even rewrite the rules without intending to. As the sun of Triumvia dipped lower, casting long shadows across the crystalline forest, Cain felt a thrill unlike any he had known. This was not just a planet, not just a ceremony. It was a puzzle, a living challenge, and the first proof that humans could hold their own among the stars. The elders finally stepped forward, signaling the end of the initial courtship sequence. Cain bowed in respect, unsure if this was the right gesture, but confident enough to trust his instincts. One of the Varelians floated close, tilting its wing in acknowledgement. The Graphic's nod was slow but deliberate. And the Lumine. Well, their light pulsed in what Cain chose to interpret as amusement. You may remain. A thought entered Cain's mind, calm but firm. But know this, human. The courtship will not tolerate ignorance again. You have glimpsed its power. Will you respect it? Or disrupt it? Cain grinned. I guess we'll find out, he thought back. For the first time since landing, Cain felt truly alive. Triumvia was no longer just a mission. It was a stage, and he was about to perform in a dance older than any human could imagine. But unlike the aliens surrounding him, Cain had no preconceptions, no rules to follow, only instinct and curiosity. And that was exactly the advantage he needed. As night fell over the glowing forests and luminescent rivers, Cain looked at the three species and realized that the next human step might just change everything. He was not an observer anymore. He was a participant, and in that moment, the possibilities seemed endless. Captain Elias Kane had thought that surviving the first step of the Triumvian courtship was enough. He had not expected what came next. The elders, who had silently observed the unusual sequence, now approached him with deliberate steps. Their expressions were unreadable, but the weight of centuries-old authority pressed down like a physical force. Kane straightened his back and tried to appear calm, though his heart raced. "You have disrupted a ritual older than any record we hold." One of the Lumine's thoughts entered his mind. "Yet you did not break it. You adapted." Kane blinked. I didn't mean to disrupt anything. I was just surviving," the Varelian trilled, wings flicking. "Yes, you survived. That is rare. But survival is not enough. You must now understand the courtship, or you will endanger yourself and others." Kane swallowed. He had expected negotiation to be about trade, not telepathic lectures and ritual diplomacy. "Then teach me," he said simply. "I can learn." The Lumine's glow pulsed in what Kane chose to interpret as a smile. The elders exchanged glances. For the first time, Kane realized that some among them were not hostile. They were curious, perhaps even excited. He had done something no outsider had ever done. He had shown potential. A Varelian stepped forward and began a slow demonstration. Its wings moved in arcs that Kane could barely follow, each movement precise yet flowing. The Grathax stamped their feet in time, heavy and deliberate, anchoring the rhythm. The Lumine guided the entire motion with faint pulses of light, subtle shifts in color, and waves of emotion. Kane watched closely, noticing patterns, repetitions, and pauses. He realized the ritual was not random. It was a language, a story told through motion, stance, and feeling. "Copy this exactly," the Varelian chirped. Kane tried, raising his arms and bending his knees as they had demonstrated. The Grothek's feet followed, though Kane misjudged the weight, and the Lumine's glow flickered slightly. Kane froze, expecting scolding, but none came. Instead, the Varelian winged a gesture toward him. "Try again. Feel it. Don't just move." Kane closed his eyes. He felt the rhythm in his body. His boots on the shimmering ground, the vibration from the Grothok steps, the subtle flow of emotion from the Lumine. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, his movements synchronized. His arms traced arcs that mirrored the Varelian wings. His stance grounded itself like the Graphic. His emotions, steady and clear, allowed the Lumine to flow around him rather than against him. A soft murmur spread among the elders. Kane felt their attention, sharp and probing, yet approving. He had not only matched the ritual, but had added a subtle human twist, a slight variation in timing that made the pattern more fluid, more alive. He opened his eyes and noticed the Varelians tilting their wings, the Graphic leaning forward slightly, and the Lumine pulsing a brighter light. Kane smiled, though he did not know if he was allowed. "You see?" A Graphic rumbled. "He learns not by tradition, but by understanding. He listens to the flow." Kane nodded. "I think I can keep up. I just need to understand what matters." "Adaptation is what matters," the Lumine responded. "But remember, unpredictability is dangerous. Too much, and the ritual collapses." Kane had understood that already. The first part of the courtship had been like walking on thin ice, but now he saw it more clearly. Triumvia was a delicate balance, and humans were wild by nature. Yet maybe that wildness was exactly what the ritual needed. Over the next few hours, Kane practiced with the three species. Each iteration of the ritual was a lesson. The Varelians moved gracefully, teaching precision and elegance. The Graphics stamped and grounded him, teaching endurance and presence. The Lumine guided his emotions, teaching clarity and timing. Kane learned quickly because he had no preconceived rules. He could absorb the rhythm, test variations, and see the consequences immediately, but it was not without mistakes. A misstep here, a misread gesture there, and the Varelians would chirp sharply. A Grothic would stomp impatiently, and the Lumine would flare in irritation. Cain corrected himself each time, adapting faster than any of the elders expected. By the time the second son of Triumvia began its descent, Cain had not only survived the practice, but had impressed the observers with his speed of learning. It was then that the first challenge arose. The council elders gathered, whispering in gestures, pulses, and vibrations. Cain did not understand everything, but he could sense tension. Some of the elders were wary of him. His presence had shaken centuries of ritual, and Shenji von Subtle was dangerous. A Varelian floated close. Its wings brushed his shoulders lightly. "You have potential," it said, soft and deliberate. "But potential must be proven. Tomorrow, the ceremony will continue. You will perform alongside the three species. Not as a spectator, not as an outsider. You will be part of it, and your movements will be judged." Cain blinked. Judged by what? "The ritual itself," the Varelian replied. "It measures understanding, respect, and flow. A misstep is not just personal, it can disrupt the balance of alliances, of courtship, of entire communities." Cain swallowed. The stakes were higher than he realized. This was not a game. A human misstep could have consequences far beyond his understanding, but for some reason, fear did not take hold. Instead, a thrill coursed through him. Humans were made for challenges like this. Humans adapted. Humans improvised. And Cain intended to show that this was exactly the kind of situation where human ingenuity shone brightest. That night, Cain could not sleep. He reviewed everything he had observed: the tilt of the wings, the stomp of the feet, the rhythm of the luminae's pulses. He even tried mimicking movements in his small cabin, pacing and bending, imagining himself as part of the ceremony. He made mistakes, yes, but each error revealed something new. He was learning faster than the aliens expected because he was not limited by tradition. By dawn, Cain was ready. The clearing was bathed in soft golden light, and the three species were already in formation. The ritual began, and this time, Cain was not a passive observer. He moved in step with the Varelians, matched the Grathek's weight, and flowed with the luminae's energy. Every gesture, every tilt, every vibration was a test. And Cain responded not with hesitation, but with confidence. The elders watched intently. Some frowned, muttering telepathic warnings, while others leaned forward, clearly impressed. Cain could feel the courtship shifting around him. His human unpredictability added subtle variations that none of the species had anticipated. Yet, surprisingly, these variations did not disrupt the ritual, they enhanced it. The rhythm became richer, the harmony more complete, the beauty of the courtship more alive than it had been in centuries. At one point, a Varelian attempted a complicated series of wing arcs that had never been combined with the Grothok's foot patterns. Cain saw the timing slightly off and instinctively adjusted his stance to bridge the two sequences. The elders gasped. Cain felt a rush of pride. For the first time, he realized humans could not only survive alien rituals, they could improve them, but success brought attention. A group of elder Varelians hovered close, watching his every move, their wings twitching in suspicion. A few Grathok whispered among themselves, clearly debating whether Cain's influence was safe. And the luminae, well, they glowed brighter than ever, pulses sending waves of anticipation across the clearing. Cain understood that he was walking a fine line. One misstep now could undo everything. Yet the more he moved, the more he felt in control. His instinct, honed through years of space missions, made him acutely aware of timing, balance, and flow. Where aliens relied on repetition and centuries of tradition, Cain relied on observation, intuition, and adaptability. Every motion he made respected the ritual, but also added something uniquely human: creativity, flexibility, and a willingness to test boundaries. By the end of the morning, Cain had completed the ritual sequence alongside the three species. The clearing was silent for a moment, the elders exchanging subtle signals. Then the luminae pulsed a brilliant white light, a signal of approval. The Varelians let out a soft chorus of trills, and the Graphics stomped in slow applause. Cain exhaled, realizing he had not only survived the challenge, but had earned the respect of all three species. You have changed the courtship, the Lumine thought to him. Not dangerously, but irrevocably. You are a human. You adapt. You improvise. You enhance. Cain smiled. That word enhance felt heavier than any medal, any honor he had ever received. Humans were not just clever. They were capable of something else entirely. The ability to step into the unknown and make it better. As he stepped back from the clearing, Cain noticed the three species exchanging glances among themselves. Some were cautious, some intrigued, and some, perhaps excited. He realized this was only the beginning. He had disrupted a ritual, yes, but he had done it in a way that opened doors, not closed them. And he could feel it in his bones. The next steps, the next sequences, would test him further, and he would be ready. The sun rose over Triumvia, spilling gold and violet light across the crystalline forest. Captain Elias Cain stood at the edge of the ritual clearing, watching the three species gather. Today's session would be different. No longer was he merely a student or observer, he was now an active participant, a human capable of influencing the ceremony itself. The elders had made it clear. This was a test of understanding, adaptability, and subtle influence. Cain flexed his fingers, feeling the smooth weight of the ground beneath him, the slight vibrations from the graphic, and the faint pulse of the Lumine around him. He had learned the rhythm of the courtship in broad strokes, but today he wanted to see how far he could push the boundaries. Humans had a way of seeing patterns differently, of connecting dots that others ignored. Perhaps that difference could become an advantage. The Varelians moved first, their wings creating arcs that rippled through the clearing like liquid silk. Cain mirrored their movements, stepping lightly, tracing the same angles with his arms. The graphics stomped in a measured beat, heavy but precise, anchoring the ritual in the ground. The luminous light pulsed like a heartbeat, sending emotions of balance, flow, and caution into Cain's mind. He focused, letting the rhythm settle inside him, his instincts guiding every motion. It was then that Cain noticed something the aliens did not. The sequences repeated with slight variations each time, but always in predictable ways. The Varelians adjusted their wings after every third arc. The graphics shifted their weight every fifth stomp. The Lumine pulsed slightly faster at the midpoint of each cycle. A human, seeing these patterns, could anticipate and adjust in ways the species themselves did not. Cain smiled. He tested the idea carefully. Instead of simply mirroring the Varelians' third arc, he shifted slightly ahead, timing his movement to bridge the next sequence of the Grathok's stomp. The Varelians tilted their wings sharply, a reaction of surprise. The Grathok froze mid-step. The Lumine's glow flashed brighter, a wave of curiosity and alarm. Cain held his position, steady and confident, waiting to see the response. Then something extraordinary happened. The pause in the ritual allowed the species to adapt to his adjustment. The Varelians arced their wings in a new flow. The Graphic stepped differently, and the Lumine's light shifted to match his pulse. The rhythm became richer, more intricate, more synchronized than before. Cain had not only predicted the pattern, he had enhanced it. The elders whispered among themselves, the Varelians chirping softly, the Graphic exchanging low rumbles, the Lumine pulsing with intensity. Cain realized that his human instinct for improvisation was being recognized. What he had feared might be seen as arrogance was actually being interpreted as innovation, encouraged. Cain began experimenting more. He introduced small variations, subtle shifts in timing, weight, and gesture. Each adjustment created ripples through the ceremony, and each ripple produced responses from the aliens that were unpredictable yet harmonious. It was as if he had added a new instrument to an orchestra, one the musicians did not know they needed. The Varelians seemed cautious at first, their wings flicking nervously, but gradually they began to follow his improvisations. The Graphic hesitated, then found a new rhythm that complemented his movements. The Lumine's pulses became steadier, almost playful, as if they enjoyed the challenge. Cain felt a thrill he had never known. This was not just survival. This was mastery, and it came naturally to humans. As the session progressed, Cain noticed that the species began to anticipate his adjustments. They tested him subtly, changing sequences mid-flow, introducing unexpected motions, and pushing the limits of his understanding. Cain responded without fear, relying on observation, quick thinking, and flexibility. Every misstep he corrected in real time, every adjustment he made created a subtle, new harmony. The ritual was no longer the same. Cain had altered it, and yet it worked better than ever. The elders could not hide their astonishment. One of the Varelians, a silver-feathered being with intricate wing markings, hovered close and whispered in a trill, "He thinks differently. He sees connections we cannot." A Graphic rumbled in agreement, though Cain could only feel it as vibration through the ground. "He moves with purpose, yet without rigid adherence. That is unusual." The Luminae's glow intensified, their thoughts merging with Cain's in a wave of curiosity and approval. Human intuition is remarkable, perhaps too remarkable for one so new. Cain laughed quietly to himself. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability had a pattern of its own: adaptation. He could read cues, predict responses, and improvise solutions faster than the aliens could anticipate. The more they tested him, the more he realized that humans had an innate advantage in situations that required flexibility. Then came a moment of tension. The Varelians introduced a complex sequence involving simultaneous arcs of wings. While the Grathak stomped in a syncopated rhythm and the Luminae pulsed to overlapping emotional currents, Cain stumbled slightly, unsure how to match the overlapping patterns. The elders leaned forward, their attention sharp, the atmosphere thick with expectation. Cain's heart raced, but he did not panic. Instead, he relied on what humans did best: improvisation under pressure. He broke the overlapping sequence into smaller components, addressing each element one at a time while maintaining the overall flow. His arms traced new paths, his legs shifted subtly, and his posture conveyed clarity and intent. The aliens paused for a heartbeat, then adjusted to him. The flow resumed, smoother than before, then added complexity that none of them had anticipated. By mid-afternoon, Cain was no longer just a participant. He was a force within the ritual. The clearing pulsed with life, the rhythm shifting and evolving with every motion he made. The Varelians followed his subtle improvisations. The Grathak adjusted their weight to accommodate his timing, and the Luminae's light seemed to dance in delight. Cain realized he had become a bridge between the species, a human whose perspective brought new possibilities to a ritual held for centuries. The elders gathered at the edge, their expressions unreadable. Cain sensed both admiration and concern. His success was undeniable, but it carried risk. Change, even when beneficial, could upset the delicate balance of the courtship, alliances, and politics on Triumvia. Cain knew he was walking a tightrope. But humans were built for moments like this. As the session drew to a close, Varelians hovered in formation, their wings slowly folding. The Grathak stomped once, then remained still. Eyes fixed on Cain. The Luminae's glow softened to a calm pulse, signaling approval. Cain exhaled, realizing that he had survived the most challenging part of the day. Not only had he kept up, but he had enhanced the ritual in ways no outsider ever had. "You have changed the courtship." The Luminae's thought entered his mind. "Not dangerously, but permanently. This is a rare gift, human. Your species does not simply follow. You adapt. You innovate. You elevate." Cain smiled. That word "lovate" felt heavier than any medal, any title he had ever earned. Humans were clever, yes, but they were also instinctive, intuitive, and daring. Where other species relied on centuries of rules, humans thrived on flexibility. He had seen it firsthand today. He could feel it in the way the aliens responded to him. But even as Cain felt a surge of pride, he sensed a shadow of caution. Some of the elders exchanged subtle signals, their expressions tense. Not everyone approved of his methods. Tradition was sacred, and humans were unpredictable. Cain knew that tomorrow he would face scrutiny. He would be tested further, not just on skill, but on trust. The Triumvians would want to know if his influence could be controlled or if it would lead to chaos. That night, Cain could not sleep. He replayed the day's events in his mind, considering every movement, every reaction, every subtle shift in the ritual. He realized that understanding the ritual was not enough. He needed to predict the reactions of each species simultaneously, think several steps ahead, and anticipate unexpected changes. It was a challenge, but it was exactly the kind of challenge humans excelled at. As dawn approached, Cain made a quiet vow. He would continue to learn, adapt, and improvise. He would respect the traditions of Triumvia, but he would also bring his human perspective to the ritual. The courtship could be more than a static ceremony. It could be alive, evolving, and richer than ever before. And if humans could help make it so, then that was a contribution worth making. The next morning, Cain returned to the clearing with renewed determination. The three species were already in formation, their anticipation palpable. Today's session would be another test, one that would push him further, challenge him more, and perhaps force the elders to reconsider what a human could accomplish. Cain felt ready. Humans thrived on challenges, and he intended to show that not only could they survive in alien rituals, they could transform them as he stepped into the center of the clearing. Cain caught the eyes of the three species and felt a thrill of possibility. This was more than a ritual now. It was a proving ground, and in that moment, Cain understood something fundamental about humans. They were not meant to follow rules blindly. They were meant to question, adapt, and rise above expectation. Today, the three species courtship would see a human do just that. The morning sun bathed its triumvia in soft gold as Captain Elias Cain stood at the edge of the clearing. Today was different. The elders had gathered, their presence heavier, more formal. Cain could feel it in the slight hum of the air, in the way the Varelians held their wings more rigidly, in the measured stomp of the Graphic. Even the Luminae's glow pulsed with a tense rhythm. Cain knew, without being told, that today he would be tested, not just on skill, but on trust. The first to move were the Varelians. Their wings arched gracefully, tracing precise arcs through the glowing air. Cain mirrored their movements, feeling the familiar rhythm beneath his arms and through his body. The Grathax stomped, steady and forceful, grounding the ritual. The Luminae pulsed, sending emotions of focus and caution into Cain's mind. He matched the flow, confident yet aware of the elders' scrutiny. Then the challenge began. A silver-feathered Varelian, one Cain had learned to watch closely, performed a sequence he had not seen before. The arc of the wings, the twist of the body, timing of the movement, it was intricate, unpredictable, and deliberately difficult. Cain followed as best he could, adjusting in real time, but the sequence shifted again before he could fully catch it. The elders leaned forward, their attention sharp, as though measuring every breath, every muscle twitch. "You have learned well," the Luminae's thought entered Cain's mind, calm, but measured. "But understanding alone is not enough. You must also anticipate, adapt, and respond with creativity. Only then will you prove your worth in this ritual." Cain nodded internally. Anticipation, adaptation, creativity, that was human nature distilled into a challenge. Where the aliens relied on centuries of repetition, humans thrived in improvisation. In testing boundaries while respecting constraints, Cain took a deep breath and moved, not just reacting, but predicting the next arc, the next stomp, the next pulse. He placed his weight to bridge sequences, adjusted his arms to complement the Varelian wings, and centered his emotions to flow with the Luminae's rhythm. The effect was immediate. The Varelians tilted their wings in surprise, then flowed smoothly into the new sequence. The Graphic adjusted their steps, creating a rhythm Cain could anticipate and enhance. The Luminae's glow pulsed brighter, an expression of approval and cautious delight. Cain realized he was no longer merely following, they were following him. Subtly responding to his adjustments, the elders whispered among themselves, their signals fast and precise. Cain felt their scrutiny, but he also felt their curiosity. Some of them were clearly wary, unsure if a human's influence could be trusted. Others leaned forward slightly, intrigued by the way he shaped the ritual, bending it just enough to enrich the flow without breaking it. Then came the next test. The Varelians performed a complex sequence that combined multiple arcs, twists, and lifts. while the Grathok stomped a syncopated rhythm with shifting emphasis. The Lumine sent overlapping pulses of emotion, caution, challenge, and subtle competition. Kane froze for a heartbeat, calculating, measuring, feeling. This sequence was designed to push him to his limits. To see if human ingenuity could hold under pressure, Kane acted instinctively. He broke the sequence into smaller, manageable patterns while maintaining the overall flow. He used micro-adjustments, slight shifts of weight, minor timing changes, subtle arm movements to bridge the overlapping sequences. The Varelians tilted their wings sharply in surprise. The Graphic leaned forward, sensing the subtle corrections. The Lumine's light surged, a wave of approval and astonishment pulsing through the clearing. Kane had not only kept up, he had enhanced the ritual. A ripple of tension ran through the elders. Kane could sense their debate, admiration, concern, and cautious recognition. Some were clearly impressed, others worried. Tradition was sacred, and humans were unpredictable. Kane knew this was the moment when he would either earn their trust or provoke their disapproval. Encouraged, Kane pushed further. He began introducing small, deliberate variations, adjusting the timing of a Varelian arc, slightly shifting a Graphic stomp, synchronizing with the Lumine in ways they had not tried before. Each change created ripples, and each ripple produced responses that were unpredictable yet harmonious. Kane realized that the ritual, once rigid and ancient, was becoming alive in a new way. Shaped by human creativity, the Varelians seemed cautious, wings flicking nervously. Yet they followed Kane's improvisations with growing confidence. The Grathok shifted their weight to match his timing, the heavy vibrations grounding the new sequences. The Lumine pulsed with the light flowing in new patterns that Kane mirrored instinctively. He was no longer merely a participant. He was a conductor, a bridge, a human catalyst within the ritual. Then a sudden change occurred. The elders introduced a new element, a symbolic sequence designed to test obedience, attention to detail, and respect for hierarchy. The Varelians performed arcs that required precision to the smallest degree. The Graphic stomped with exact timing. The Lumine's pulses demanded emotional clarity and subtlety. Kane could feel the challenge in every vibration, every flicker of light, every wingtip movement. One wrong step, one misread signal, could disrupt the balance entirely. Kane's mind raced, but panic did not enter. Humans excelled in situations like this, in problems with high stakes and limited information. He focused, observing each pattern, anticipating the next movement, and inserting micro-adjustments that honored the ritual while preserving his unique perspective. The Varelians arched their wings with perfect precision. The Graphic stomped firmly, and the Lumine's glow flowed smoothly with Kane's pulses. The sequence completed flawlessly. A low rumble of approval passed through the Graphic, a trill of satisfaction from the Varelians, and a surge of bright white light from the Lumine. Kane exhaled, realizing he had passed the first part of the Elder's scrutiny. But he also sensed that the most critical challenge was yet to come. The ritual was not only a test of skill, but a measure of trust and influence. The Elders would soon see whether a human could change tradition without endangering it. By mid-afternoon, Kane's adjustments had grown bolder. He experimented with timing, subtly shifting sequences to create smoother transitions, bridging movements that the aliens had never linked before. The Varelians adapted, the Graphic followed, and the Lumine pulsed in recognition. The ritual was evolving, enriched by Kane's human perspective. The clearing vibrated with life, a living testament to what innovation could bring. Yet not all eyes were pleased. Some elders whispered urgently, concerned about the pace and boldness of Kane's influence. Tradition was meant to be stable, predictable, and humans were inherently unpredictable. Kane understood the risk. If he overstepped, he could undo centuries of carefully maintained order. But he also knew that innovation often required courage, and humans had plenty of it. As the final sequence of the day began, Kane prepared for the ultimate test. The Varelians combined multiple arcs with twisting lifts. The Graphic added a syncopated stomp that shifted every second cycle, and the Lumine layered 3 overlapping emotional pulses. Kane's heart beat rapidly, This was designed to push him to the edge, to see if human ingenuity could hold under extreme pressure. He moved with focus, breaking the sequence into manageable steps while maintaining the flow. His arms traced arcs that complemented the Varelians. His legs shifted to match the Grathak's rhythm, and his emotions aligned with the Luminae. The elders leaned forward, their attention sharp and unwavering. Every micro-adjustment Cain made was observed, measured, and judged. When the final movement concluded, a silence fell over the clearing. Cain held his stance, waiting. Then the Luminae pulsed brightly, sending waves of approval. The Varelians tilted their wings in coordinated arcs, a signal of acceptance. The Grathak stomped once firmly, a low rumble of recognition. Cain exhaled. He had not only survived the elders' test, he had earned their cautious respect. You have shown what humans can do. The Luminae's thought entered his mind. Not by brute force, not by imitation, but by observation, adaptation, and creativity. You enhance tradition without breaking it. Cain smiled quietly. Humans were clever, yes, but they were also daring, flexible, and capable of connecting patterns others could not see. He had proven that in this moment. Human could not only survive alien tradition, they could improve it. The elders remained solemn. But Cain sensed their curiosity now. They would watch him closely, yes, but they also saw potential. Humans were unpredictable, yes. But Cain had shown that unpredictability could be a gift rather than a threat. As the sun set over the glowing forests, Cain stepped back from the clearing. He had faced the scrutiny of 3 species, endured tests of skill, trust, and adaptability, and emerged respected. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, perhaps more difficult and demanding, but Cain felt ready. Humans thrived in uncertainty, in improvisation. In moments where others hesitated, tonight, Cain allowed himself a quiet thought. Humans were not just visitors in the galaxy. They were catalysts, innovators, and problem solvers. Triumvia had just glimpsed the power of human perspective, and Cain would be there to guide it, step by step, gesture by gesture. Pulse by pulse, the morning air of Triumvia shimmered with light as Captain Elias Cain approached the ceremonial clearing. Today, he sensed, would not be a simple test. The elders had convened. The Varelians hovered in precise formation. The Grathak stamped deliberately, and the Luminae glowed with a soft but intense pulse. Cain understood the weight of the moment. This was the culmination of everything he had done so far. The moment where humans would either be recognized as allies or dismissed as unpredictable outsiders. Cain took a deep breath and stepped forward. The ground beneath him hummed softly with the vibrations of the Grathak. The air flowed in response to the Varelians' wing patterns. The Luminae's pulses gently reached out to him, signaling focus, awareness, and balance. Cain was no longer an observer. He was a participant, a human fully integrated into the ritual's flow. The elders began the courtship ceremony, moving in intricate patterns that had evolved over centuries. Cain mirrored them, matching the Varelians' arcs with his arms, echoing the Grathak's grounding steps with careful weight shifts, and aligning his emotions with the Luminae's pulses. But this time, Cain did more than match. He began to shape the ritual, connecting sequences that had never been joined, smoothing transitions, and introducing subtle variations that enhanced the overall flow. The Varelians tilted their wings in surprise at first. The Grathak adjusted their stomps to his timing, and the Luminae's glow brightened, almost playful, as if delighted by the human's subtle influence. Cain could feel a rhythm emerging, richer and more dynamic than any version of the ritual that had existed before. He smiled quietly to himself. Humans thrived on unpredictability, yes? But when combined with observation and respect, unpredictability could become innovation. The elders' eyes were fixed on him. Cain could sense the debate among them, some wary of change, some intrigued by the human skill. Cain knew he had to tread carefully. One wrong move could undo everything he had accomplished. But he also knew that this was the moment humans were built for. High stakes, complex patterns, and a need for ingenuity under pressure. A Varelian performed a series of rapid wing arcs, combining a movement Kane had never seen. The Graphic responded with a shifting stomp sequence that altered its timing mid-cycle, and the Lumine layered 3 overlapping pulses of emotion. Kane felt a thrill course through him. This was the ultimate test. Designed to push him beyond observation into true mastery, he acted instinctively, breaking the sequence into smaller elements while maintaining the overall rhythm. His arms traced arcs that complemented the Varelian's, his legs shifted to anchor the Grathak's steps, and his emotions synchronized with the Lumine's pulses. The elders leaned forward, studying every movement. Kane held his stance, confident but focused, letting his human intuition guide him. The clearing seemed to pulse with life as the sequence reached its climax. Kane introduced a subtle adjustment, timing a movement slightly ahead of the Varelian arcs to bridge the Grathak's rhythm. For a moment, the 3 species froze in surprise. Kane held his position, breathing steadily, trusting the instinct that had brought him this far. Then the magic happened. The Varelians flowed into the new sequence effortlessly. The Grathak adjusted their weight to follow his rhythm, and the Lumine's glow expanded, sending waves of recognition across the clearing. The elders gasped, some in approval, some in disbelief, but Kane understood immediately. He had done what no human had ever done. He had not broken the ritual. He had improved it. A silence followed, deep and heavy, as the elders processed the unprecedented development. Kane held his position, steady, sensing their judgment. Then, one of the Lumine stepped forward, their form glowing with pure white light. Kane felt a wave of thought wash over him. "You have shown humanity at its finest," the Lumine's voice entered his mind. "Observation, adaptation, courage, and creativity. You have not merely participated, you have elevated the courtship. Triumvia will never be the same." The Varelians chirped softly, their wings folding in graceful acknowledgement. The Graphic stomped once, a solid, deliberate sign of respect. Kane exhaled, a smile spreading across his face. Humans were often underestimated. Yet here, in a ritual older than any record, humans had proven they could not only survive, but thrive, adapt, and innovate. The elders moved closer, their expressions serious but softened with approval. One of the older Graphic rumbled, "You are dangerous and brilliant. Few outsiders would dare act as you have. You honor the ritual while changing it. That is a rare skill." The Varelian beside him added, "Humans are unpredictable, yet you respect the flow. Your choices improve what we could not achieve alone." Kane felt a rush of pride, but remained humble. "I only followed what I could see, feel, and understand," he said. "I did not intend to disrupt, only to participate and learn. But if my presence has helped, then I am glad." The Lumine pulsed gently, sending a wave of warmth and recognition. "You have given this ritual new life. Humans are not merely observers in the galaxy. You are catalysts, innovators, and allies. Your species brings a perspective we cannot ignore." Kane's heart pounded. This was more than recognition. This was a declaration that humans were no longer outsiders. They were contributors to Triumvia's culture, respected and capable of shaping traditions without destroying them. Then came the final part of the ceremony. The elders allowed Kane to lead a segment of the ritual himself. For the first time he chose the flow, guiding the Varelian's Graphic Lumine through a new sequence he had developed over the past days. The species followed him, trusting his human intuition, and the clearing resonated with a harmony that none of them had ever experienced. The ritual was alive, evolving, and magnificent. When the final motion ended, the elders stepped forward. A silence fell, deep and reverent. Kane held his breath. Then the Lumine pulsed a bright, steady light, a signal of permanent approval. The Varelians tilted their wings in precise alignment, and the Graphics stomped in unison, a low, rumbling applause. Kane exhaled. "You have done what no outsider has ever done," the Lumine's thought entered his mind. "You have changed the ritual forever. You have earned the trust and respect of Triumvia." Kane allowed himself a small, quiet smile. Humans were clever, adaptable, daring, and perhaps most importantly, They could see possibilities that others could not. Triumvia had witnessed the power of human perspective firsthand. The elders gathered around Cain. Their expressions softened. One of the older Graphic rumbled, "We will remember this day. Humans are no longer irrelevant here. Your presence has enriched our courtship, strengthened our alliances, and opened new paths for cooperation." A Varelian added, "You may return to your mission, Captain Cain. But know that Triumvia will welcome your species in ways we could not have imagined before. Your influence will endure in our rituals and in our culture." The Luminae's glow washed over Cain in a gentle wave. "Go, but return, if you choose. You have left a mark here that will last for generations." Cain nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He had come to Triumvia to negotiate trade, but he had found something far greater: respect, recognition, and the proof that humans could contribute meaningfully even in alien systems far beyond Earth. As he stepped back toward his shuttle, Cain looked over the glowing forests, the luminescent rivers, and the three species who had once been strangers but now acknowledged him as a peer. He realized that this experience was not just about rituals or traditions, it was about perspective, creativity, and the courage to act boldly. Humans were often underestimated. Yes, but Cain knew the truth. Adaptability, intuition, and imagination were strengths no other species could fully replicate. Triumvia had learned it, and now Cain had too. Humanity's greatest power was not technology. Strength or speed was the ability to think differently, to see opportunity where others saw limits, and to act where others hesitated. As the shuttle lifted off, Cain felt the soft hum of Triumvia beneath him, a world alive with light, rhythm, and new possibilities. He looked back at the clearing one last time, seeing the Varelian's wings, the Grathok's grounded stance, and the Luminae's glowing pulses. The courtship would continue, but it would never be the same. Humans had walked into the ritual, disrupted the rules, and elevated tradition itself. Cain allowed himself a quiet laugh. Humans had arrived, not as conquerors, not as interlopers, but as collaborators, innovators, and catalysts. And somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. Triumvia had taught him lessons, yes, but Cain also knew that humans had taught Triumvia something equally valuable, that perspective mattered, that creativity was powerful, and that even the oldest traditions could thrive when met with curiosity, respect, and courage. As the stars of Triumvia faded behind him and the shuttle rose into orbit, Cain looked forward, not just to the mission ahead, but to the infinite possibilities waiting for humans in the galaxy. Humanity had walked into the unknown, disrupted expectations, and left a mark that could never be erased. And somewhere, deep in the glow of the ceremonial clearing, the three species felt it too. A human had walked into their world, and for the first time in centuries, the courtship had been more alive, more beautiful, and more complete than anyone had imagined.